Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's class, we are going to deal with the first chapter, that is diversity in the living world of class 11 Telangana board. Let's begin. What is life? Are we going to see life in non-living thing or living thing? What say? As per your textbook, it states that life is an exclusive, that means only found in, exclusive property of the various type of living organism in the world. That means we won't be able to see life in the non-living thing. Does chair have life? Does tube light have life? Does table have life? No, these are non-living things. So life is an exclusive property of only and only living organism. We have life, you have life, animal have life. How do I get to know about the life? By studying the fossils. What are fossils? Fossils are nothing but dead remain of an organism. When I say dead remain means what? Dead remain means I'm talking about the bones. So when I do fossil study of microscopic organism, I found that on earth life existed 3.5 billion years ago. By this, I want to know what is the definition of living organism. The definition of living organism, when can I say an organism is living? So I can say an organism is living if the organism is able to self-replicate. What is the meaning of replication? It means making copies. Evolving means how the evolution happened for the organism. If the organism is able to do evolution. Self-regulating, interactive system capable of responding external stimuli. That means the organism is going to react whenever any stimuli is there. Right? Now, what is living? Living is something which is going to possess life. This is what we discussed. Life is the exclusive property of living organisms. Now, are identified based on, any of the living organisms are identified based on, they have their unique feature, they have their structure, and they have the characteristics of growth, responsiveness. That means they are going to show response towards the stimuli and the development. So just now we saw the unique feature of living. What were those? Growth, reproduction, ability to sense environment, that is response to the stimuli, and mount a suitable response. Both are same. Now, the definition of biology is given in your textbook. That is, biology is the science. Bio means what, class? Bio means life or living organism. Logy means study. So what is it? It is the science of study of living organism. So this is what is written over here. It is the science dealing with the study of living organism. Now, classification of living organism. Based on the biology, we have classified living organism into three categories. That is microorganism, plants and animals. Biology, in spite of wide diversity, what is the meaning of diversity, class? Many, variety. Okay, diversity means variety. In spite of wide diversity, in spite of having lots of variety, there is fundamental uniformity exists in the living world. That means all the species are uniform. That means suppose if I have A species, B species, C species, all are uniform in number. No one is dominating over the others, right? Because it is important to maintain the ecosystem. As they possessing protoplasm. Class, what is protoplasm? What is the meaning of protoplasm? We have already studied about the cell, right? This is cell, and then we have a nucleus. Inside the cell you have a cytoplasm, and inside the nucleus you have a nucleoplasm. Cytoplasm along with the nucleoplasm, we call it as protoplasm. DNA is made up of nucleotide. What is nucleotide? What is nucleotide, class? Let me erase it all. Okay, what is nucleotide, class? Nucleotide is nothing but what is written over here? DNA is made up of nucleotide. That means nucleotide, polymer of nucleotide is going to make your DNA. But by this, what I have to understand, what is nucleotide? So DNA is composed of three different things. What are the three different things? One is your pentose sugar. Other one is your phosphate. Next one is your nitrogenous bases. Okay, nitrogenous bases. When all the three components are present, we call it as nucleotide. Now there is another term, we call it as nucleoside. Nucleoside. Don't get confused. How do I remember tide? Tide means it is going to take all. See, all the component of the DNA makes nucleotide. When phosphate is not present, we call it as nucleoside. Well, write it in the comment box and tell me whether the DNA is going to be acidic or basic. Now, what are the parameters? So, basically, we have two parameters, that is defining feature and the characteristic feature. What is defining feature? Defining feature states that it is going to be present in all living organism, but the important point is without any exception. If it is present in one living organism and absent in another living organism, then we won't be calling it as a defining feature. It becomes the characteristic feature. So, characteristic features are present in living as well as the non-living organism. So, is defining feature is present in non-living? No, because that is the exclusive property of the living organisms, right? Example, your metabolism, consciousness, how it is called as defining feature, we'll see in the upcoming slide. And the characteristic feature example is your growth and reproduction. Now, characters of the living organism. These are the 9 characters which are given in your textbook, and one by one we are going to study about all the characters in detail. So let's start with the first one, that is cellular organization. When I talk about the cellular organization, I should understand I'm talking about what? I'm talking about the cell. What is cell? Cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Now, why I am saying structural and functional unit of life? Because basically cell is the one who is making the structure, and we are able to perform the function due to presence of the cell, right? So cell is the structural and functional unit of life. An organism body is made up of millions and trillions of cells, right? Cells are isolated by the plasma membrane which controls substance exchange. So suppose this is a cell and this is another cell. So obviously one cell is isolated with other cell through the plasma membrane. This outer layering, outer covering, outer membrane, we call it as plasma membrane. Two types of cells are present. One is prokaryote, other one is eukaryote. What is the meaning of prokaryote? Pro means primitive, old. Eukaryote, eu means true. Carry on word we use for nucleus. So let's see the picture and then we will understand. So this is a picture of prokaryote and eukaryote. When you see prokaryote, its genetic material is simply lying and distributed in the cytoplasm. But when you see the genetic material of eukaryote, it is inside the membrane. This membrane we call it as nuclear membrane. But here we do not have any membrane. So prokaryotes are the primitive one, old one. That's why it does not have nuclear membrane. So we call it as it does not have no true nucleus. Okay, and it is simpler one. Lots of cell organelles will not be present. The only cell organelle which is present in the prokaryote is your ribosome, because protein synthesis is important for each and every organism. Now, when we talk about the eukaryotes, it has well-defined well-defined nuclear membrane. So we call it as it has true nucleus. Right? And it is complex because you can see lots of cell organelles are present in eukaryote, and it is the advanced one. That's what I have written over here. Prokaryote is the simpler form, and prokaryote is without the distinct nuclei. It means there is no nuclear membrane, but the nuclear membrane is present when we'll talk about the eukaryotes, right? Okay, let's come to the next one, that is complexity of the organization. Okay, sorry. Complexity of the organization. Now, when I talk about the complexity of the organization, obviously we know that complex means it has to start from simple to complex level. Simple to complex level. So life is categorized by the high degree of order. That is, we start with the cellular level, then cell combine, similar types of cell combine to form tissue, similar type of tissue combine to form organ level, organ combine to form organ system level. So we start with the simple and we end with the complex system, right? Now, organism exhibit hierarchical organization, which refers to the increasing complexity of the life. Inorganic substance. Now let me first explain this. What we study now, that is we start with a simple thing and in a hierarchy way. Can I say that after cell I can directly jump on the organ? No, it has to be the formation of tissue, then only there will be the formation of organ system, organism, right? So this is the hierarchy. Hierarchy means sequence, so we have to go in a sequence wise manner, right? So we start with a simple thing. Generally we start with the cell in biology when we talk about. So group of cell, when I say group of cell, which kind of cell? Which has similar structure. Now back in the mind you have to remember that the structure can be different as well. Similar structure, similar origin and similar function. Okay, the cells which have similar structure, similar origin and similar function will combine together to form tissue. Tissue will combine together to form organ. Organ will combine together to form organ system, and organ system will combine together to form organism. Now write it in the chat box and tell me which one is the simplest one out of cell, organism, and which one is the complex one. Now, the most basic level is your cell. As I said, it is the smallest unit of life, right? Group of cell work together to form tissue. Tissue work together to form organ. Organ work together to form organ system. And organ system finally form you and me, right? Organisms. Now, let's jump on the third characteristic, that is sensitivity to the environment. Sensitivity is the property of showing a response to the external and internal stimuli. Class, what is stimuli? Stimuli is nothing but it is a factor by which we react. Basically, it is an external factor by which we react. Then why you have written internal, ma'am? Then it is stimuli can be internal also. For example, your cells are going to sense a chemical. These chemicals are nothing but it is going to work like a stimuli to the other cell, right? How does it act? What is the mechanism? Stimuli are received through the various kind of sense organ. So who is going to take the stimuli? It's your sense organ. Response in the living organism. Living organisms show responsive to the environmental stimuli. What are these? Physical, chemical, biological. That means stimuli can be physical, can be chemical, and can be biological. Biological means any living organism, your microorganisms or anything. Physical, like suppose if I'll pinch you or I'll throw a ball on you, right? Now plant responses. Tell me class, what is phototrophism? Photo means light, trophism means movement. When the plant moves towards the light, we call it as phototrophism. Temperature, move towards the temperature, we call it as thermotrophism. Hydrotrophism, move towards the water. What is irritability? Irritability is nothing but the ability to show a response. Now if you are able to show the response, that property is called as irritability. Suppose if I am pinching you and you are not showing the response towards me, that means you do not have the property of irritability. But if we all have sense, definitely we are going to show the response towards the stimuli. Here you can see the example of thigmotrophism. Thigmotrophism means by touch it is going to show the response. Here you can see the movement of plant towards the light, and here you can see the growth of root towards the water, we call it as hydrotrophism. Now write it in the comment box and tell me, apart from hydrotrophism, which movement this growth of the seed is showing, especially the root growth. Now, let's come to the fourth one, that is growth. Very, very, very important class. What is growth? Growth is one of the fundamental characteristics and it includes from unicellular to multicellular. Now, unicellular have only one cell and multicellular will have many cells. By this, can I say that growth is not seen in the unicellular? No, definitely it is going to be seen in the unicellular as well as the multicellular. Basically, growth is irreversible process when we'll talk about the living organism. Okay, occurs when? These two things you have to understand class. When I say anabolism, let me show you the slide and make you understand. See, kata, cut. This is how I remember. Two types of metabolisms are there class. Catabolism, anabolism. Kata, cut. That means you have to break down. Am I supposed to break down the simpler complex? No, it is already in the simpler form. Then why should I break the simpler complex? Simpler substance. So I have to go and break the larger molecule or the complex molecule. So catabolism is nothing but when your complex molecule is broken down into simpler molecule. Then what is anabolism? Opposite of catabolism. That means synthesis of larger molecule. So that means building up simple to complex. Building up simple to complex, we call it as anabolism. This is what I have written over here. So growth occurs. Now you only tell me, class, if I am going to break and break, then will you be able to see growth? No, obviously not. Growth is nothing but something addition is happening, right? So what I have to do, anabolism has to be more than catabolism. When no growth is happening, that means anabolism is equal to catabolism. What about the degrowth? Degrowth is nothing but when anabolism is less than catabolism. Degrowth means negative. That means catabolism is more as compared to the anabolism. Now class, tell me, do we see growth in non-living organisms? Do we see growth in non-living thing? Can I say my chair is growing? Yes, we do see growth in non-living organism. For example, if I have a chair over here, I am going to pile up the chair. So this is growth. What is growth? Growth is nothing but, let me show you the slide. If I'll ask you the definition of growth, growth is nothing but increase in mass or increase in cell size or increase in number of cell or individual. So if I am going to increase the number of chair or if I am going to increase the mass or size of chair, then definitely I can call it as chair is showing growth, right? Piling up things, right? So my living thing as well as non-living thing, both are going to show growth. So it is a characteristic feature or the defining feature, very important with respect to the NEET. It is a characteristic feature. It is not a defining feature because non-living organism can also show this character, right? Now let's see the growth in living, non-living thing as well as the living thing. So growth occurs externally. I am going to add chairs. I am taking an example of chair, or suppose I am taking an example of pebbles. So I am adding, let me put it in a glass. So I am adding these pebbles externally. Internally I am not doing. But when we talk about the living organism, growth is internally. Is it reversible? Obviously, if I am going to remove the pebble, the growth will be degrowth, right? That means it is going to be reversible. But when we talk about us, have you ever seen you have grown up tall and then next morning when you wake up you are short? Is it going to happen with you? No, we do not have degrowth. So it is irreversible for us. How does non-living thing growth happen? Due to the accumulation of similar substance. Mind it, I'm talking about the similar substance, right? And how growth occur in our body? Due to addition of material or the formation of cell inside our body. Is it clear, class? Fine. Now, what about plants and animals? How growth occur in plants and animals? Can I say plant grows continuously? Can you imagine us growing continuously and touching the sky one day? Obviously, it's not going to happen. Our height increases up to the certain level and we stop, right? Growth is not only about the height, class. I already told you it is about the number of, increase in the mass, increase in the cell size, increase in the cell number. Anything if it happens, it means the growth is happening, right? So when we talk about the plants, plant growth is indeterminate. That means continuous growth. Why it is showing continuous growth? Because of the presence of which tissue? That is your meristematic tissue. What is meristematic tissue? Is it a differentiated one or undifferentiated one? It is undifferentiated one. When I say undifferentiated one, that means it is a actively dividing cell. When I say it is actively dividing cell, that means it does not have specific function now. Okay, no specific function. No specific function has been given, right? So growth throughout the life due to meristematic tissue and cell division occurs regularly. This is the reason why plant grow continuously in their life cycle. But what about animal? We grow only till the certain age. After that, what happened? After that, only and only if something happened to you to replace that worn out cell or the lost cell division will occur, right? Now, when we talk about the plant, growth occur only at one particular place, wherever the meristematic tissue is present. So we call it as localized growth. What about the animal? When we talk about the animal, it is a diffuse growth. When I say diffuse growth means growth is overall. That means kabhi, have you ever seen like this ki your palm is larger than your nose, or your legs are larger than your shoulders? It's not going to be like that. You have a uniform growth all over your body. You know, one leg is larger than the other leg. No, it's not going to happen like that, right? Now the next one is growth in unicellular and multicellular. When we talk about the unicellular class, you have to understand one thing, that the growth in unicellular and reproduction in unicellular are synonyms. That means if I say unicellular organism, for example bacteria is growing, that means I am also saying that it is reproducing. Because what is growth and what is reproduction? That means from one cell two daughter cells are formed. Growth is also that from one cell two daughter cells are formed. So growth and reproduction is synonym when we talk about the unicellular. What about the multicellular? Growth and reproduction are non-synonymous. Okay, now growth is mutually inclusive. It is not an exclusive property, it is an inclusive property. Cell division is a mean of reproduction and growth. Just now I told you that, right? In higher plants and animals, growth and reproduction are exclusively, these both are different. Here growth and reproduction is not different, it is inclusive, same property. But when we talk about the multicellular, growth and reproduction both are mutually exclusively, they are not same when we talk about the higher organism. Now the next point is our metabolism. What is the meaning of metabolism? In your textbook it is given sum total of all chemical reaction. Mind it, whatever is happening in your body, all the reactions which are happening in your body, we call it as metabolism. Now, is it a defining feature or characteristic feature? Have you ever seen any chemical reaction occurring in your chair or table or any non-living thing? No, it is the characteristic properties. It is the property of living organism. So we call it as defining feature, because you will see only in living organism without any exception. No living organism will be able to be alive without any chemical reaction. Some or the other reactions is happening, because we know that protein is very important for us, and how this protein form, it is going to be broken down, then amino acid combined to form protein. How this will happen? Obviously through the chemical reaction. We call it as metabolism, right? Now, energy requirement. Life activities require energy in the different form. The energy needed for the living organism is obtained from the chemical bond. So we know that what is the energy currency for us? Okay, I think I've written. What is the energy currency for us? That is ATP. We know that we get energy from ATP, but how do we get it? What is the full form of ATP? That is adenosine triphosphate. Tri means 3. Adenosine is your nitrogenous base, right? So adenosine triphosphate is there. See here. So this I am showing you a bond. Whenever this bond is broken down, then only your energy is produced. This is what I meant by this sentence. Okay, now the chief source of energy for living organism is sunlight. Now write it in the comment box that why have I written that the chief source of energy is your sunlight. Now we have already seen anabolism and catabolism. Let's just quickly differentiate it. Anabolism is building up or constructive. Catabolism is breaking down or destructive. Anabolism is what you are doing, converting simpler substance into complex. Catabolism is you are converting complex substance into simpler. It requires, when do we do anabolism? During growth, during storage, and during maintenance. When do we do catabolism? When we are performing various type of activities. For example, I told you, for the formation of protein, we need lots of amino acids. So from where do we get this amino acid? Obviously protein has broken down to form amino acid, then different amino acid will combine together to form different protein, right? Now this is endothermic, it stores energy. But catabolism, breaking of the bond is happening. When the breaking of bond is happening, that means the energy is released out. What is the example? Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis means building is happening. That means you are preparing glucose, right? What is the formula for glucose? C6H12O6. Respiration means you are going to break this glucose in the presence of oxygen. Obviously, it can happen in the absence of oxygen as well. But let's talk about the presence of oxygen. So, in the presence of oxygen, this glucose molecule is broken down to produce energy. Right? Now, The next one is your reproduction. Reproduction, what is the definition of reproduction? That is the formation of new individual of similar kind. What is the purpose? Why do we do reproduction? Is it important for our survival? No. Without reproduction also we will be able to survive. Then why do we do that? For the continuity of the species. Your species continuation will happen only and only through the reproduction. If reproduction doesn't happen, that means that species will extinct or stop, right? Stop in the sense that particular species you won't be able to see, right? Now what is the basis of this reproduction? That is basis of heredity, DNA molecule, that means gene. See here class, when I talk about the gene, so this is your DNA and you have different nucleotide. I already told you what is nucleotide, and we have nitrogenous bases over there, right? Now these nitrogenous bases are nothing but it works like a code, okay? Code for protein, okay? So the nitrogenous bases which code for protein, we call it as gene. Nitrogenous bases which code for protein, we call it as gene, okay? Now this gene is passed from parent to progeny. What is progeny? Progeny is nothing but your offspring. Progeny is nothing but your offspring. Now class, tell me what is the difference between heredity and inheritance? What is heredity and what is inheritance? One is, in the chat box you're going to write me the right answer. In the chat box you're going to write answer and tell me. Now in one, I'm giving you two options. One is the process of transferring, the process of transferring character. When I say character, that means I'm talking about the gene. Character from one generation to other, and the other one is transferring character from one generation to other. Which one is heredity and which one is inheritance? Write in the comment box and let me know about it. What is the importance of reproduction? Reproduction is a characteristic feature. Now why it is not a defining feature class? Why it is not a defining feature? Because you will be able to see here, it is not a defining feature, it is a characteristic feature, because you have mule, which is the cross between male donkey and the female horse. It is infertile. That means they won't be able to give fertile baby, right? Sterile worker bee, these are also infertile, and infertile human couple. So we have exception, right? Reproduction happens in each and every living organism, but we do have exceptions. These doesn't go with the reproduction process. So that's why it is a characteristic feature, not the defining feature, right? Non-living organism cannot reproduce or replicate by themselves, right? Now let's come back. Now, two types of reproduction is there: asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction. Asexual reproduction happens between how many parents? Only single parents. So we call it as uniparental. Sexual reproduction can be uniparental as well as biparental. Then what is the basis of sexual reproduction? Obviously, it is not going to be uniparental and biparental. Then what's the basis? It is nothing but fusion of gamete. During asexual reproduction, there is no fusion of gamete. But when we talk about the sexual reproduction, there is fusion of gamete during sexual reproduction. What is gamete class? Gamete is nothing but your reproductive cell. That is sex cell. That is when I talk about male and female. In male, I have sperm, and in female, you have egg. Right? Now, asexual reproduction is easy, simple and fast. But when we talk about the sexual reproduction, it is difficult, complex. Talk about the human being. For the birth of a human baby, it takes 9 months. That means it is a complex process, and it is not fast. It is a slow process. Right? Identical offsprings. You will see clone in asexual reproduction. Why will you see clone in asexual reproduction? Because it is formed from uniparental, that means single parental, and the second reason is no variation. No variation is seen in the asexual reproduction, but variation is seen in the variation is seen in the sexual reproduction because two parents are involved over here. Fusion of two different gametes are involved over here, so we see variation. Now let's see example of asexual reproduction. We are not going to go in detail about this because we will see in the upcoming chapters, right? So just name and the example we are going to see. Asexual reproduction, binary fission. Binary means bi means two, fission means breaking. So that means a single organism is going to break into two daughter cell. For example, amoeba, paramecium, euglena, protozoa. Now in the chat box, tell me class, does paramecium shows binary fission or multiple fission? Birding. Birding is nothing but, let me show you. Okay, see here, this is binary fission of amoeba. You can see the parent one. In binary fission, the first thing which starts dividing, that is your nucleus, because nucleus is the master, brain of the cell. So nucleus has to divide first because the hereditary material DNA is present in the nucleus. First nucleus divide and then your cytoplasm divide ultimately leads to the two daughter cell. Second is your hydra. You can see this is the hydra and this is the bud which is outgrowth. Okay, bud is outgrowth. It is growing and once it becomes mature, it detaches from the parent and grows into the new hydra, right? That is an example of budding. Yeast, hydra and sponges. Let's talk about the fragmentation. Fragmentation means what class? Breaking up. Let's go with an example. So that is Spirogara. Here you can see the Spirogara is broken into two pieces. A single Spirogara. Okay, let me tell you over here. So suppose this is the Spirogara and we have fragments of Spirogara. Each fragment is going to grow into the individual. Okay, each fragment is going to grow into an individual, right? But then what is regeneration? Regeneration is nothing but re means again, generation means forming, right? Re means again, generation means forming. So planaria also show fragmentation class. Here you can see that it is broken down into three parts and each part 1, 2, 3, each part has grown into different planaria, different individual of planaria. But actual meaning of regeneration is nothing but only the broken part, the cut part is going to grow. For example, lizard tail, right? Regeneration means itself there are going to be the stem cells. Stem cells are going to be present over there. If it is present, then only that particular part will be grown. For example, lizard tails, their stem cells are going to be present over there. So if you are going to cut lizard tail, you will see again there will be the growth in the lizard tail. Whole lizard is not going to grow. That back in the mind you have to understand this. This is the difference between fragmentation and regeneration. Then here you can see the formation of spore. What is spore? Spore is again the reproductive cell. Spore is again the reproductive cell. In chat box, tell me spore is going to be haploid or diploid, right? Spores are reproductive cell. That means from this cell, individual is going to grow. Simple example, if I'll tell you, if you are going to keep bread, not in the fridge, outside, if you'll keep it and the moisture is there already, bread may what is present? Carbohydrate is present, right? And then you have moisture plus moisture. So this is the good and best environment for the growth of the fungi. So we have spores around us, that is reproductive cells around us. It will fall on it and since the best carbohydrate is there, that means nutrient is there, moisture is there, so it starts growing. We call it as rhizopus. Keep one day bread outside and you will see some greenish appearance. That is nothing but due to spore. Spore has grown into the fungus. Now spore you will find it under this kind of structure. We call it as sporangia. Okay, so this was whole about the reproduction. The next one is homeostasis. What is homeostasis? Homeostasis is nothing but it is the process by which living organism maintain a constant internal environment. Very, very, very important. Is all the living organism are able to maintain their constant temperature? No, everybody won't be able to maintain their constant temperature. Then who are these special one who is able to maintain? Have you ever observed that during summer season you sweat a lot and during winter season you shiver? Why this happens? Why this happens? Winter season you shiver. Why this happens? This happens in order to maintain the internal body temperature. So we are the higher animals, we are the higher vertebrates, so we will be able to maintain our internal body temperature, right? How this happens? This happens by regulating the metabolic process. When I say metabolic process, it is nothing but all the activities. See, it's not like that na, ki you switch on the button and the sweating will start, you switch off the button and shivering will stop. It's not like that. Everything happened due to the metabolic process, right? Whether it is a characteristic feature or defining feature, obviously just now I told you every organism won't be able to maintain its internal body temperature, so it is a characteristic feature, not a defining feature. Ensures stability and optimal functioning of the biological system. Now the next one is evolution. Life is not static, that is, it is not stationary. It is constantly changing, dynamic. When I say dynamic, it means it keeps on changing. Is it from complex to simple? No, it's from simple to complex. That we all know that from prokaryote all the way eukaryote have been evolved. Prokaryote is the simple one, eukaryote is the complex one, right? Now what is the source of variation? Source of variation is mutation and gene recombination. What is mutation, class? Just now I told you that if this is the DNA and you have the sequence, let me draw it over here. Suppose G, T, C, G, any random sequence I have written, right? Now suppose what happened in this T, maybe you are roaming a lot under the sun. So what will happen? Suppose this T get erased, okay, and these three will make protein now. Instead of GTC previously, here T was there now. So previously three nitrogenous base are going to combine together to form one amino acid. Okay, so previously GTC was making protein 1, but now you were roaming around the sun, so UV rays have manipulated your DNA. So now the sequence is going to be GCG. It is going to make protein 2. Is the protein 1 is similar to protein 2? No, both are different. So how this happens? This is mutation. Mutation is nothing but change in the DNA sequence. Change in the DNA sequence. Change in the DNA sequence. Then what is gene recombination? Gene means I already told you the sequence of DNA that code for the protein. Re means again combination. So suppose if this is the chromosome from your father and this is the chromosome from your mother. So what will happen? Recombination. You can see here. Now the new chromosome which is going to form here, it's gonna be like this. See here once. So here we have red color one and then here we have green color one. So what happened? Gene exchange happened, that is recombination. Okay. Now next one, Charles Darwin theory of natural selection. Natural selection means nature is going to select. To whom nature will select? Who is fittest. Who is fittest as per the Charles Darwin? It is who is going to reproduce. Okay, reproductive fitness. Reproductive fitness. Right? So living organism accumulate beneficial variation over a time and help organisms survive the struggle for existence. So the struggle for existence is nothing but whoever is going to fit in the nature, they will struggle to fit in the nature, and those who will struggle and fit into the nature, nature is going to select only those people, right? Only those organisms. Now organisms tend to evolve gradually into the new type of species. We call it as speciation. So what happens? Suppose this is one organism and you have given the condition, very harsh condition, and you know there are, let me draw it over here. Suppose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 organisms are there and very harsh condition is there. So time to time what happens? The organism will start dying and only 1 or 2 organism will stay. These 2 organisms are selected by the nature because they struggle for the existence, they show some changes, and ultimately they have become the new species. This we call it as speciation, right? Survival and adaptation. Evolution is driven by the survival and adaptation of the organism with the beneficial trait. So whoever will be able to adapt with the environment, adjust with the environment, only those organisms will be able to survive, right? Now next one is senescence and mortality. Life cycle. What is the meaning of senescence? Senescence is nothing but the process of aging. We call it as senescence. Then what is mortality? Mortality is nothing but death. Okay. When it leads to death, we call it as mortal. Like we humans, we animals are immortal. That means it's not like that ki we are going to be, we are not going to die, right? Sorry, the living beings are mortal, not immortal, my bad. Okay, it is, we all are mortal, we are not immortal. If I'll say immortal, that means we will never be able to die. We will never be able to die, but we all are going to die one day, so we are mortal, right? Now, all living organisms go through stages. We all go through our birth, growth, maturation, reproduction, aging and death. The process of aging, we call it as senescence, and the process of death, we call it as mortality, right? What is lifespan? Period from from birth to natural, that we call it as lifespan. What is definite lifespan? Living beings have definite lifespan varying across different species. We have different lifespan. Crow has different lifespan. Everybody has different lifespan. Right? Now the last paragraph in this topic is interaction and emergent properties in the living organism. Life phenomena such as nutrition, respiration, excretion and irritability arise from the interaction between the various components of the organism. So no matter whatever mechanism is going in your body, always it is going to be interactive. All the other mechanisms are interlinked with each other. If anything happened to any of the mechanism, then other mechanism will be affected. Properties of the tissue. See here, the tissue is going to form with a similar kind of cell. If suppose a tissue, for example, cardiac cell, cardiac tissue, okay, cardiac tissue is going to do pumping of the blood, right? Pumping of the heart will is going to be done by the cardiac muscle. But cardiac tissue is made up of cells, right? Now, can I say like 1, 2, 3, 4? Can I say cell number 1 can do pumping of the heart, cell number 4 can do pumping of the heart? No, individual cells do not have this property. Only and only tissues are going to form this property. Why? Due to interaction of these cells. So 4 cells if I have drawn, that means interaction of 4 cells is going to help in the pumping of the heart. Pumping of the heart, right? This is what is written in these 2 lines. Now cellular organism. Properties of the cellular organelles are not present in the molecular constituent. These properties emerge from the interaction among the molecular component comprising the organelle. So if I talk about the mitochondria, whatever molecular component, when I say molecular constituent, that means I'm talking about your DNA, your RNA, your protein, your enzyme, your hormone, all these are called as molecular constituent. Okay. Now these molecular component of the cell, so these molecular components are present in the mitochondria. These are going to interact with each other, and by this my mitochondria is going to called as powerhouse of the cell. It is going to produce the energy, ATP, right? Now, hierarchy of organizational complexity. Interaction result in the certain properties at the higher level of organization. The phenomena is true at all level of hierarchy. That means everything is in the sequence manner. Nothing goes out of it. Always it has to go from simple to complex. Okay. Or lower level to higher level. When I say lower level, it means you have to understand lower means simple level. Right? Now here you can see class, this is going to be your nitrogenous base. Okay, this is going to be a nitrogenous base and this is the structure of the DNA. The last part, biology as a study of life. We have already seen the definition of biology. Continuity of the life in the living organism. Present, past and future are linked with each other. We all share common ancestor. So since we share common ancestor, we have common genetic material. We have common genetic material, but it varies. If I say it doesn't vary, that means we have to be same species. It varies. That's why from species 1, species 2 is formed, species 3 is formed, right? So that's all we have in today's class. Please study this and we will make part 2 video for the have in today's class. We'll meet in the next class with a part 2 video. Thank you.